The New Teacher by Felicity Cresswell of Rylstone, 2849. Narrated by Janine Penfold. It was 1954, late January, and an extremely hot day as the North West Mail pulled into Cryon railway station. Shortly afterwards, Mrs. Williams, the postmaster, was surprised to see a man carrying a suitcase walking the half-mile from the station to the post office. He arrived and announced, "I'm Doug Ray. I'm the new teacher." Mrs. Williams, on behalf of families in the district, had written to the Department of Education the previous year, explaining how many children were taught by their families via correspondence school, and asking if the department would consider starting a school in the area. There had been no reply. But suddenly, there was a teacher. She contacted parents, and everyone arrived next day with pencil and paper to be educated in the tin shed, known as the community hall. On the first day, the train went by, and we all rushed out like bush brumbies to see the train. Mr. Ray was amazing. He taught students from kindergarten to students completing high school, often 40 students at a time. He lived with a different family each term, taking part in all activities that their property had to offer, which must have been at times very stressful, especially if the children of the family required much discipline at school. Cryon Public School was his first teaching position after graduating from Teachers College, so he was in his early 20s. Mr. Ray brought together a group of wild children used to freedom and being only with their siblings, and made us into reliable, responsible students and instilled a love of learning. We were children who did our correspondence lessons around helping with any work required on our properties and unused to regular school hours. Eventually, a small one-room school was built, but no accommodation was available, and subsequent teachers lived with different families each term. The school was a wooden structure with a generator for electricity and no telephone. The fridge ran by kerosene. Any phone calls were made at the post office. Heating in winter was with a wood fire, with wood being donated by one of the families. Summers saw the windows being left wide open and hoping for a breeze. One of the fundraising events used to be film nights. The generator would be cranked up and a sheet erected on the outside of the school, and we watched and would strain to listen to the words above the sound of the generator while eating a barbecued sausage. Cryon is on black soil, which, following only small amounts of rain, becomes impassable. There were questions from school inspectors as to why the school was closed on occasions. No one was able to drive to there without risking being bogged. The only exception was Maureen Hare, who rode her horse to school. Each day, Mr. Ray would go to the post office to have morning tea with Mr. and Mrs. Williams, leaving the older students in charge. We played the bush games we knew, with rodeos being one of the favourites. This consisted of a yard made up of bits of sticks, corrugated iron, fencing wire, and anything else available to construct an area where the horses could be housed. One day, I fell off my horse, who was my sister Margaret, onto a piece of corrugated iron. This resulted in a cut almost to the bone and shaved the main artery on my left arm. Peter Mackenzie was dispatched to tell Mr. Ray. I was bandaged, and Mrs. Williams rang home to suggest that Felicity might need a stitch in the arm. It was a big event for us to travel the 45 miles to Walgett, and always involved doing as many jobs as possible at the one time. Consequently, Mum composed a shopping list. Dad contacted my uncle, who lived next door, saying he could take his FJ Holden for a service, and then had another shave, because he was going to town. Eventually, Dad arrived to collect me, took one look at my bandaged arm, which was seeping blood, and drove faster than I had ever known. In later times, when we discussed this incident, Dad would say, "Poor fellow, he needs a bit of a break, and it's good he can have a cuppa with the Williams." Having worked in schools for many years, it is hard not to compare what would happen today following an incident such as my accident. The likelihood of parents suing, or at the very least an investigation as to why there was inadequate supervision. There would be incident reports to be filled in by staff and students, reports sent to the director, not to mention that nothing as interesting as a homemade yard would be allowed on the school grounds. Electricity has made schools both warm or cool as required, and allowed for computers and associated resources to make education of students efficient and effective. However, I think nothing compares to the fun and simplicity of our education at Cryon Public School. How fortunate we were to have a teacher such as Doug Ray to accept the situation that he was given and to embrace and make our education and first school such a memory. Thank you, Mr. Ray. The end.